Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Regina. This is Philip, and we are the two founders of a Vienna indie studio called Microbird Games. We will have to do this in English. Our Spanish is not so good. I hope you can understand us. The post-mortem for our game Dungeons of Hinterberg is today's topic. And for those who have not heard of it, what is Dungeons of Hinterberg? It's a single-player genre mix of action RPG, think of kind of Zelda, and social sim, think of Persona, set in a fantastic version of the Austrian Alps. And when we started out, we said that the three main pillars of the game are a fresh genre mix, a quite unusual setting in kind of realistic world, and the bold comic art style. And let's see if we can play the trailer so you can have a look. Yes. Thank you. Gracias. PlayStation. So you kind of saw that it's a pretty big game. It has 20 hours of gameplay. It has 25 handcrafted dungeons with puzzles and combat, 20 enemies, 6 bosses. I'm not going to read all of it. And it released on, apart from Switch, every major platform. So it was quite a big production for a comparatively small team. So the first part of this talk is going to be about how we managed to produce that much content with a small team and what kind of tips we can give you. And then the second part that Philip will talk about is how the release went and how the market looked and what happened afterwards. So let's get to the production. There's a timeline, a short one. Philip and me started working on this game basically just the two of us at home in 2020, had the idea, fleshed it out, and started building a playable demo or prototype. And this was kind of the golden year of game development. The pandemic had just struck, which sucked, but every investor wanted to invest in digital goods. Everyone was at home, and there was so much money going around. So it was actually a really lucky timing to get a somewhat bigger indie game funded. We worked more or less for a year, just the two of us at home. We had a small grant from the Austrian government, and then we started pitching our prototype. We already went to the social media. We were quite lucky that we went kind of viral with our first tweet on Twitter, which sucked a bit less back then. So it was kind of, we were in a really good position. And in the end of, or in the middle of 2021, we signed with Microsoft, who paid a part of the development funding, and then shortly after with our publishing partner Curve from the UK. And then at the end of 2021, we slowly started growing our team. And at the height of the production, we were like 10 people for a short while. Then we ramped down again. But yeah, on average, it would have been 5 or 6 people working on it. You can see like the number of artists and coders. And just a fun fact, it's 43,000 hours of work that went into it from all the people, basically. The budget was the low 7 figures. And then the game was announced in June 2023 in the Xbox Game Showcase, which was an amazing opportunity for us, obviously. And it released in July 2024. So I'll start with the art style. This was super relevant and at the core for us with this game. Like often, it's very valid to just start a prototype with gameplay and focus only on that, but we knew that for this project, art style and the whole feeling and vibe, like you go on a vacation, you go to the Alps, landscapes have to look beautiful. We kind of knew art style and mood is really important. And we both just generally love stylized media, so we looked for references a lot outside of games as well. For example, graphic novels, European graphic novels, Möbius being, I guess, one of the most obvious inspirations, but also movies like Into the Spider-Verse, for example. And yeah, we tried to get inspiration from outside of games and really define an art style early on. Our demo that we sent out, for example, also had more or less kind of final quality when it came to art. And we knew we needed an art style that we can produce stuff fast with a small team. So low poly, it's very much about being expressive, being colorful. It's not at all about being realistic or being the most detailed around. And a good part of that was the custom deferred shading setup. Philip built it on top of Unity's render pipeline. And what it basically does is we can give every material a render ID, like an ID in our system, and then everything gets rendered into a big texture. And in this texture, that's the final image, basically, we still know what areas are skin, what areas are wood, what areas are clothes of people. And then we can, in post-processing, access this and, for example, say, I don't know, the outlines of trees can be yellow in one level and black in another, or skin always gets a more rosy and subtle shadow, and, I don't know, stone gets darker shadow. And we can also change this then in a kind of node-based system. We can adapt this and override this for certain levels and worlds within the game. And here's an example what we used it for. For the faces, we thought, okay, we're not going to rig the whole face with 100 bones. We're not going to make 100 blend shapes. We are going to work with textures. And these are basically just decals, and they also know about these IDs, and they only render if they find a skin ID, so you can't accidentally have an eyebrow on hair or anything like that. And we made these custom texture atlases, you can see in the top corner, that have different mouth shapes and eye shapes for every character, and also different shapes for the moods. And then we just switch those decals out and also animate them a bit, we can rotate eyebrows, or we can squeeze an eye shortly before someone blinks. And she's making a bunch of stupid faces there, but it's all basically set up and animated in Unity. And here you can see all these guys, they have their own atlas, but they're all using the same talk animation, blink animation, and so on. So it's really not realistic, obviously, at all, but it's very fast to produce, and it's kind of expressive, and you can give all the characters their own, character and mood. Similar, again, for the asset creation process. Example is a character here, but it was similar or even simpler for other assets in the game. It's only low poly modeling, no chains of baking stuff down and then having textures, and then if you want to change something, iteration becomes complicated. We wanted to avoid all that. We're only doing low poly models, and we have some special maps that you can see on the right. Again, for example, the black and white ramp, they distribute a different ID, so it was an ID for skin, and in the areas that you can see skin, and another ID for the rest. Or the greenish one on the bottom, every island of different green gets an outline drawn around it. So you can kind of think of it like drawing an illustration where I can choose what's important enough about the character to get its own outline, and then I just drive this over the map. And the maps were done in Substance Painter, for example. And yeah, in Unity, the render pipeline takes care of the rest. And if we wanted normal maps, we just used stamps. It's probably not easy to see, but the only normal map he has is the zipper on his fanny pack. And this then also, everywhere where the normal map changes, you will get an outline in the final rendering. It's probably better visible here if you look at these tiles for the wall. That's the normal map that comes in, and then you see in the picture, everywhere where there's a big change in angle in the normal map, we get an outline, so an outline around each brick, and maybe with a big crack, you get extra outlines. And what's most important about this slide is that we always tried to buy whatever we can. We're a small team, we have to produce fast. Hundreds of people who are better at rock sculpting than us have already sculpted rocks, so we don't really need to do that, we can buy it. And the good thing is usually if you buy something on the asset store, you need to find a style that really matches your style. And this was not that important for us because our render pipeline applies this comic cel-shaded look anyway, so we can buy something that looks like the rock. You can see that it doesn't look quite like our style, but once it goes into the render pipeline, it looks similar. And all we did sometimes was, for example, take the normal maps into Photoshop and run a filter over them so they lose small detail. We don't want a bunch of small outlines, so we just filter stuff, but then we can reuse it more or less seamlessly. Same went for rigs and animations. Animations is probably, I'd say, one of the least polished things in the game. But we thought, okay, we don't have an animator, we cannot lose that much time animating everything from scratch, and we again bought everything that we even could, and I think only 5% of the animations probably in the game were really done from scratch if we didn't find anything good enough. The rest was stuff we bought, and you can see, for example, the character there in Unity. This is one of our monsters. We also decided that they were all made out of this magic goo material, so you don't have to model much body detail, and then they just wear masks that are a bit more detailed. And he uses the same animation than this, I don't know, cursed vampire guy on the top. And if we wanted to tweak the animation a bit, we could still do that within Unity by using a plugin called UMotion, for example. So we don't have to 100% depend on what we can buy. We can also take it and like extend it or cut stuff out or change the timings. And yeah, it was really one of the areas where we decided we're just gonna sacrifice a bit of quality. Like if we had had a good animator, he would for sure have been able to make it some percentage better, but we kind of decided, okay, this game, like it lives from vibe, it lives from the moods, from the puzzles, from the socializing, it doesn't live from the best action animations, so it's okay if we can save a lot of time by sacrificing a little bit of quality, it's okay for this game. Our level design workflow, we also, again, tried to work as much in Unity as possible. We had a level designer who could also model a bit. Like, he wouldn't be able to do highly polished 3D models, but he could use a plugin like UModeler and then just model these gray boxes that are just good enough to play the level and, yeah, to test it and to communicate to artists what needs to be done in the next step. And our level designer, for example, also had a programming background, so he could do little things like, I don't know, implement puzzle mechanics and connect switches and stuff like that himself, and maybe later someone reworks it, but he could work more or less independently in creating a level. And yeah, that's one of, I think, the main tips I have, or important things. I think if you're a small team, it's just great to have people who can cover several disciplines. Again, the level designer doesn't have to be the best at modeling or programming, but it helps a ton if he can do some. And yeah, the same, this is a whole slide about this, the same kind of applied to our artists. For example, everyone is kind of a 3D artist and a 2D artist at the same time. Most of our coders are kind of level designers or game designers and can do some additional things on their own. So yeah, what made us fast? A team of generalists, like I just said, then an efficient and forgiving art style. Again, it's about being expressive. We developed a certain color mood for every level and setting and so on, so this was important, but then when modeling, the exact level of detail is not that important. And a solid pipeline and tech art. Whenever something can be taken over by tech art and it saves you not having to do it for 20 characters or every setting, that's amazing. And yeah, decide where you can maybe sacrifice a bit of quality so you win time. Yeah, I'll give it over to Philip to talk about how it went.
Pardon me. So this is how we managed to produce the game. I'm going to talk about how it launched. All through production, we did several kinds of tests to figure out whether we're actually on the right track, whether we just fell in love with our own product, or whether there was actually something there that players could connect with. So the three main things that we did were play tests through an agency, which means you can target a specific group of players, age brackets, gender, cohorts, that sort of thing, and you can get detailed feedback based on questionnaires that you give to these players. You can also say you want casual players or hardcore players or RPG players, that sort of thing. We did, I think, 2 of these tests. We had several rounds of mock reviews. A mock review is when a journalist, typically a former games review journalist, pretends to write a review about your unfinished game and gives you a score and everything, so you get a little bit of an idea of how the press and players will react to the finished game. And we also did some agency consulting through a consulting firm named Agro, 2 people in France who are really, really excellent. What they did for us was they played the game for several days and they gave actionable and fantastic feedback on how to make the game better. And I think this helped a lot in identifying our own blind spots. Marketing beats, I think I'm going to gloss over that a little bit. This is just to say we had some major beats. Xbox was kind enough to include us in one of their main showcases in June 2023. In August, they even set up a booth for us at Gamescom where they invited journalists and we could get them to play a hands-on press demo all day. So we had a lot of press contacts from that. They did the same for us at GDC. So they just invited media to play our game and talk to us about it, which was really great for building hype. We had 2 Steam demos. The first one was invite only or sign up only. That was in May. Again, we launched in July 24, so this was 2 months before release. And then in June, we were part of Steam Next Fest, where we were, I think, among the top 50 most played demos of that event. So quite good media visibility, quite good marketing beats. We launched at 200,000 wish lists on July 18th, and we had good Steam visibility on launch as well, right? In many regions, we were in the main carousel, we were in the popular new releases, and so on and so forth. We got really lucky there. The launch also went over well with press and players. We had an 80 Metacritic, 93% positive on Steam, and a lot of great feedback. This might all sound like I'm bragging. I'm getting to the point where things did not go according to our plans, but the launch itself, from a media and player feedback perspective, was fantastic for us. We had the biggest streamer in Germany spending a couple of hours with Hinterberg organically. We did not pay them. We had Yahtzee from Zero Punctuation, whose whole shtick is to be very unkind to games, and he actually did a glowing review of our game, and I think that had like 200,000 views. Our favorite review, though, is from someone on Steam who just said, "This game is so amazing, I wish Austria was real." Don't we all? So then, how did it do, actually? And in order to give you a sense of proportion here, I want to look at another. I want to look at an indie hit game, Another Crab's Treasure by AgroCrab, which came out in April of the same year. It sold 100,000 units in just under 4 days. And we know that they had pretty much the same amount of wish lists that we did. They were also around the 200,000 mark. Their peak concurrent players, this is SteamDB, were at around 4,700. So they sold 100,000 units in 4 days. Our expectations were, well, we also have 200,000 wish lists. They're pretty high quality. A lot of them came from the recent Steam Next Fest. We were hoping for a higher than average conversion rate because Dungeons of Hinterberg is a bit of a boutique product, right? There's not 10 games like that. So if you wish list that, you might actually want to play it. Our expectation was not to sell 100,000, but to sell 40,000, 50,000 units in the first week. And the reality is that we initially did just a tenth our peak concurrent users were a tenth of Another Crab's Treasures. They were at 4,000, we were at 400, and the first week sales, we were really not happy with that. They were just under 10,000 units. So we thought, what's happening here? And it's a good game by pretty much any standard. The media loved it, the players loved it, streamers loved it. It had pre-release hype, so it did not just get buried. It had launch visibility on Steam, so that worked out. Pricing may have played a role. We launched at 30 euros, and in hindsight, we could have gone cheaper. But we didn't see complaints about that either. And we did launch into Game Pass day one, which might have done a bit of cannibalization of our sales, but I'm going to get into this in a minute. We don't think that was it either. So we looked at how did other games do that launched around the same time that we did. And we looked at the top 25 games according to the Metacritic ranking, what the average press rankings, review rankings for review scores for those games were that launched in July 2024. We were not really interested in anything that's an existing IP or an early access game or something that's not on Steam. We wanted to compare games in a similar situation. So new IP, highly rated, some big games, some smaller games, but how did they do? We end up with 14 games. And if we're looking at Another Crab's Treasure again with 4,700 peak concurrent users, you can see that none of the games that were highly rated in July, that launched in July and were highly rated, are even reaching half of that. There's a few brackets you can divide this into. But in general, I would argue, like if you look at those owner estimates, this is data from end of September, so 2 months after July. If you look at those owner estimates, none of those sold 100,000 units in their first week, far from it. And there were big games on that list. Kunitsugami is a big, AA game by Capcom that launched to some hype. Nobody Wants to Die did better than us, but that's a AA game published by Plaion. I would argue that they underperformed as well. The Operator, I think, is the only game on that list that did well, and that's due to the fact that it was developed by a single person. Everything else, I would argue, that launched in July and was highly ranked on Metacritic, underperformed. And you could sort of see that coming a little bit. At the beginning of July, several journalists, outlets started writing about what a great month for game this would be, what an intensely dense month it would be. And if you think about it, 2020, 2021, COVID lockdown, a lot of investment went into games, and a lot of bigger titles got funded that had, development cycles of 3 or 4 years. So a lot of stuff came out at the same time. And this is still pretty much our best explanation. Too many games coming out at once, too many good games. And if we look at the Metacritic list, those tend to be bigger games. There were some smaller hits, but for bigger games that take player commitment, I think a lot of them just did not break through players' backlogs. If I have a giant backlog of games and more is coming out all the time, I'm probably not going to buy a 20-hour game. I might look at a 2-hour or 6-hour game, but I'm not going to invest I'm going to wait for a sale before I invest my time. So this sucked. This was not, we were not happy with the release. But that was a year and a half ago. Things have been looking up. It's not like we couldn't have done anything better, but I think there is a real lesson there that games right now are a really difficult space for bigger titles. It's far easier to break into people's lists of stuff to play and stuff to buy if you're doing something smaller than if you're shooting for a 20-hour game. Anyway, 1 year later, we kept updating the game. We added a new game plus. We added costumes and gear visuals. We did a PlayStation release, and we added some free DLC with new dungeons to explore. So quite a few updates. We also ended up on some best of the year lists. We were part of some bundles, including Humble Choice, and we were part of Amazon Luna's game streaming service. We also had a physical release recently for PS5 via Super Rare. The game did well in the year after launch. We had a really bad launch, but if you look at the purple line here, that's the end of the timeline from all the SteamDB graphs I've shown you earlier. And I can't give you exact numbers, but we've now sold between 100,000 and 200,000 units on Steam. But the interesting thing here might be that only 1/4 of our revenue is actually from units sold. The rest is from ancillary deals, and our publisher Curve is really good at that. Game Pass is obviously the lion's share of that, but also Humble Choice, Luna, and some things that are happening in China play a part in this. And it's an interesting lesson for us that unit sales might not be the main driver of your revenue. I think our long tail is actually looking okay, so we did not get filthy, stinking rich off of the game. It was not a super huge success, but it did end up doing decently. We made something that we're proud of and that we love, and we're still getting love mail a year later, which is wonderful. And I think it's going to keep doing all right. Our publisher Curve is excellent at handling long tail. The game is going to age well. It's not, a super hyped genre that is going to disappear in a year. And it did break even, and it got us an audience for our next project. So all in all, we're fine. Thank you so much. Thanks for staying. And
if you want to take questions, we have time for a couple of them. Okay.
Hey, thanks a lot for sharing that with us. I have a question. You explained us a lot of super intelligent decisions to keep costs low and have a lot of volume. I wanted to ask, like, where those decisions come in terms of like the production phase. Like, is this something that you do during pre-productions? Like, you think like, how can we economize animations, modeling, etc., and then start production with that, or is that something that you've been doing while producing, like finding shortcuts, etc.?
You can.
It was a little bit of both. Like a few decisions we made really early, such as the game has 4 different overworlds, and you get different magic skills in every overworld. Whereas in a Zelda, you would keep picking up new skills, and you could apply them everywhere. In our game, you go to one overworld one day and another overworld the next day, and you have just 2 skills that are attached to that overworld. What that means is that our level design complexity is much lower in terms of thinking about puzzles and stuff like that. And I think we made like dozens of decisions like that just to keep down, anticipate the complexities that would arise and keep that down, and that happened during pre-production.
Yeah, I think also the fact that we came up with the art style so early and really developed it alongside the demo was because we knew it would be a kind of big project, and if we wanted to have a chance to get it financed and done, we have to be really efficient. And it ended up after the demo, we realized, oh, it is bigger than we even wanted, and it already needs more people and more time, so it was really good to have that in mind from the beginning. And then, you know, in the demo, no one had facial animation. That came later. So at this point, we said, OK, what's the cheapest way to do this? So I think we set ourselves up to be fast to produce, but you also constantly have to rethink it. What can you do for this task? What can you do in this step?
Hello. Thank you so much for the talk. I was just curious, and I mean, like this question is a nice follow-up to the previous one, because usually when you want to make things a bit agile and like have you really want good pipelines and have the content like be produced quickly with custom tools, like especially you guys that had all this custom tech for rendering and facial animations. So I was just curious. Did you guys try to like do the tooling on the Blender or Maya, like, or in the plugins for tools that the content guys use, or did you try to adapt Unity as much as possible, like to make life easier when non-technical people use the engine? Like, what was your strategy there?
I think most of the tools are actually within Unity because, again, like with the small team, everyone has to be able to work in Unity. Like, we don't have artists who then give their stuff to a programmer to import or something. Everyone kind of has to work in the engine anyway. So I think that's where most of the tools were. But yeah, we also, of course, work with some scripts in Maya that just automate the exporting processes or make each other faster. But this was more stuff that the team brings in and like a script collection you have and you share with your team. I think most of the custom tech we built was Unity, I'd say, right?
Yeah.
We run out of time. Thank you very much to the time of Microbird Games for their time here. Please put your hand together for them.